Hello, in this clip I'm gonna show you how to attach and set in a sleeve. So I can use both ways. I'm gonna do both ways anyway, because then you would know that there's hardly any difference of finish. You know, eventually they finish the same way, but it's just not the same way you can attach them. So for attaching a sleeve, I'm gonna put this on here. I'm still using my basic bomber jacket pattern I've used in the previous videos. So I've cut my both sleeves. I've attached my shoulders to shoulders, front and back, easing the front back shoulder extra into the front. So they're all done, and that is like my front. Can you still see? So here's my front. You can see with my zips both attached, and that's my neckline around here. So before we do any of attachment, I want to show you on the inside of your seam allowances, like 1.5, which is seam allowances on this one, and see the notches are on the side, so you can easily find out. So I've used a one of these magnet on my machine throughout, so it will keep an accurate level of measurements. So once when you're done, you have to leave a, when you sew, beginning and at the end, leave some thread tails. This is the thread tail, so that's the stitch line inside, and there's a thread tails left from either side to be able to hold on to. And once when you have done that, you just have to pull this thread tail gently into gathers. So you can see my sleeve heads now slowly appearing. So I have to move those little puckers or gathers, not huge gathers. This is not going to, this is not designed to have a huge amount of gathering, just a gentle amount. And once when it's done, here's my shoulder point, both front here and back here, and that is my point of shoulder. I can see the joint there. It's already being sewn together, and open the seam and press. Now I want to find the same on my sleeve. There is a notch on the top. I can see the notch here, so I had to lay that here and then bring my pins a bit closer and pin it. So this is called laying it right side to right side fabric, because on this fabric it's very hard to kind of point out what is the right side, but I have already marked and notched them. So I can see my front, I have a single notch here and a single notch there, and in the back I got double notch there and a double notch on the sleeve as well. So now we just have to pin them along. And I am not doing what you call the French seam at this one. This is just a sleeve attached, because I have a lining for later to add to this garment. Therefore, I don't need to do French seam. But it's still, even there'll be a one coming up with the French seam. We can learn that in another video. But this is for any top or a jacket that you may be having a either overlocker for these the hem or the seams to be neatened later, or have a lining. So now I'm attaching all this along the side. Same goes to the back as well. If I start from here, so I can spread the gathers in case if I can evenly spread them. See if I'm close enough. Yeah, actually it's not bad. It's already close enough. Okay, that's one of them. So I just need to sew. Do you remember my stitch line was just on the inside of the seam allowances, not the outside. Therefore I just have to stitch from the outside now. If I point out, so this is like 0.2 of the seam allowance is actually meant to be here, but I had to stitch inside. So now I can stitch away from the outside, holding it together all along the sleeve to complete this one. So that's the one sleeve. Before I go into sewing, I'll show you the other way. That's attaching a sleeve we've seen. So this is the setting sleeve. So you have to actually close the seam of the sleeve, but still you need to have that line of stitch from front to back where the notches are, from the second notch to second notch at the back. So all around you have a stitch line in the inside, on the inside of the seam allowances with thread tails. Remember, we kept thread tails, so we can pull these together, pull it gently. So remember, you have to keep your seam already closed for the sleeve this time, and press open your seam before you attach them, because otherwise it will be very difficult to press them open later. So now I have enough of puckers or gathers, so I just need to spread them evenly across this sleeve head, we call it. So you can gather them gently all the way to the other side until you have a sleeve head. You can see it's forming its shape now. So if you are using anything other than cotton, like wool for example, you have to have two row of stitches instead of one, so they give you a better strength for you to be able to pull it together, otherwise it will break easily. So you don't, in cotton like this sort of fabric, you don't really have much of a problem, or they're really light, easy to handle. So I think I want to pull the thread on the other side a tiny bit. So this time I have to pull the one under, so it's going upwards a little bit, so meeting in the middle. There's my sleeve heads appear very nicely. So now what I have to do is holding it in position like this. If I put my hand in, and there my other side of the garment is already sewn, and the seam is already closed. The shoulder seam is also closed. So last time we had only the shoulder seam closed. Remember, when we did the sleeve attach here, we've pinned the sleeve, but we haven't closed the sleeve or the side seam. This is the side seam at the back, going all the way to the sleeve, and the side underarm seam here on the sleeve all the way to the front. They're all still open, so we had to close it afterwards. But for now, for the other side, we have to put the sleeve onto this. Can you see this well? So I want to find out where my notch is. That's my notch for the shoulder. Here's my shoulder joint, so I had to put them together right side to right side. So I have to go from inside now to pin this closely. So I will try and bring it towards you so you will see what I'm doing. So I have to make sure both lines with one another correctly. So we have two notches at the bottom, we have to match that notch. Front is a single notch, back is a two double notch. And then we have the seam, underarm and the side seam to match. So this is my underarm and side seam to match. And that's my notches. What I might do, once I pin this, I'll run a stitch quickly in the machine to hold it together for this particular one, because it's already closed, and then point the other ones, the open seam, how we can sew it together. because it's underarm and the side seams are still open on the other side. On this side, underarm and the side seams are closed. You just set in this sleeve in. This is called the set-in sleeve. The other one is just an attached sleeve. But either way, you need a stitch line on the inside of the seam allowances, like a 0.1 or 2, and then and the thread tail should be left from the beginning and the end as well, so you can make gathers by pulling it. I think I'm nearly there. Now I can sew this all around. So I'm going to turn you towards the machine. Let's hope it's going to work, because sometimes it does turn itself off. But before you starting to sew a sleeve, you can take this part out if you have that in your machine, and you can feed the sleeve actually into that part. And I'm going to start sewing from my underarm seam and the side seam together. I have already placed my magnet, and it's guiding me through out, and then I will slowly start sewing this. Go back and forth a bit. Don't make sure that you take pin off the garment as you sew along. So this method is very good when you use an overlocker or you have a lining, because you won't be able to see any of the raw edges. So do you see all of these little puckers, gathers, now neatly going in to the shoulder armhole area. So I still have these thread tails. I just need to trim them off and clean them up. And now what I was going to show you was this part. So they're still open, side seam open, underarm is still open. So let's pin them. We'll have to come back again to the table here. Let's see if you can see it. So when you do this one, first you need to have a stitch line holding the garment and the sleeve together before we close the side seams, okay? So we'll start from this end and come back once when it's done. Going back this way. This time I don't really need to have this one taken off because it's flat. Can you see? Yes, you can see. So my measuring, the magnet will keep the exact amount again. Little back tack. take your pins off as you saw. Make sure your solder seams flatten both sides, open press before you start sewing. So I have done that. So I have to remove all of the pins now. And now we have to put the right side together. Front and back, side seams first. So let me show you. You come back here. So that sleeve, the one that we set in, because it was already fully closed on the arm seam, everything was closed. All we need to just press open seam and then fold the hem of the sleeve and then finish it. But we don't need to do that now. We are going to do the other one to show you how we actually arrive here before closing it. So we have to lay it wrong side together. And that is my sleeve. I'm putting underarm seam together. So this way you can start from the hem of the garment or the hem of the sleeve, even if you like to. Sew it all the way. Match point. A little notch in the middle of the sleeve, and then here. Let me take this to the mannequin so you can actually see this better. We're still here, very sorry about that. So I was going to show you. So this was the sleeve that we set in. So it had already closed seam under here and under here in the underarm as well. So for the other side we didn't. What we have here is open underarm and the side seams. Side seam is here and underarm is here. So I'm just literally pinning it so you can actually see in a bit that I can sew it all the way. Yeah, so I have now joined the side seam, the front and back, all the way. underarm seam as well. So now we can actually remove this and start using that. So you know already now that with bespoke pattern you can attach or set in sleeve. We go back here, we got single notches at the front, 2 of them, and a 1 double notch at the back and a 1 top knot. And it's the same with the pattern piece for the sleeve. So you can see the shoulder notch, and then for the back you got 1 single notch and 1 double notch as well. And then here at the front you got 1 single notch and 2 single notch. So they should be able to match, or use them as guidance as well. So when you actually place your sleeve together onto the body or the armhole, you'll be able to figure out where the single notches are your front and the double notch is your back. So this makes it easier. Hope this was helpful, and you can use any of this pattern and actually set in a sleeve or attach a sleeve if you like it that way. And look out for the next video. Hopefully we'll put a one similar sort of set in or attach both ways with a French seam for a shirt. So we'll bring that so you will know exactly similar sort of steps that we take to begin with, but then there are differences than the ones that you have seen today. Not huge differences, but fewer more steps than there are in these 2 cases. Thanks for watching.